this video, I'll be taking you through the new staff time clock from an administrative perspective. There are a number of things you need to do to set up ClassJuggler to take advantage of the staff time clock. The first of those is to make sure that all of your staff members will have access to log their time in the staff portal. To do that, we'll go into the Security Administration section on our home base screen. I'm going to click on List Roles. And this will open up all of the built-in roles in ClassJuggler, as well as any custom roles that I've built for my company. I'm going to pull up my instructor role. Because I've already got this created, all I need to do is add the new staff time clock user access privilege so that all of my instructors who have this role assigned to them will have access to the staff time clock. I'm going to click on Add New. And I'm going to just search for the word staff, which will pull up the staff TC or time clock administrative privilege and the staff time clock user privilege. And this is the one that we want to add so that all of our staff members will have access to log their time. So I'm going to click on that. I'll leave that set to add and save that. So now our instructor role has the staff time clock user privilege. And this will, again, allow all of our staff members that have this security role assigned to them access to that new time clock feature. The second thing we want to do is make sure all of our staff members have a pay rate and pay type on their user record. So let's pull up our list users under user administration, and we'll get a list of all the administrative users in ClassJuggler. And remember, for any of your staff members that will have access to the staff portal, they'll need to have a user record in ClassJuggler. We'll just look at one of our staff employees here. I'm going to pull up Nick Burns. And over on the right side, we'll see two fields, one called pay rate and one called rate type. So here, this is one of my instructors. And we pay Nick $35 an hour for teaching classes. I can also choose whether that's paid hourly or per class. Hourly will be calculated based on the duration of the class, whereas per class will just be a multiplier based on the total number of classes taught in any given pay period. For this example, I'm going to select per class. And I'm going to save my changes. You'll notice that once I've saved my changes, the pay rate is hidden. All I have to do is toggle this checkbox in order to see that. And that prevents prying eyes from seeing someone's pay rate. Now that we've got all of our administrative users set up with pay rates, we can go ahead and configure the staff time clock. So back to my home base menu, I'm going to go down to Staff Tools and click on the staff time clock. Here we have a submenu with four options: reviewing and approving time, reporting, managing jobs and teams, and our time clock settings. Let's go into the time clock settings. First thing we want to do is switch the time clock to on, and then choose our time tracking method. There's two different options for this: tracking your time by date, job, or class, and the start and end time, or the date, job, or class and the duration. The only difference is with a start time and end time, you're going to designate that I started a particular job or class at 1 p.m. and worked till 2 p.m., for example, versus just saying I worked 1 hour. I'm going to leave it to job, class, start, and end time. Then you're going to choose from one of the four pay frequencies. You can choose weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. In this example, I'm going to choose bi-weekly as our pay period. ClassJuggler then is going to ask you for a week start. What day of the week do you start your week on? In this case, Monday, which is pretty common. And then it's going to ask for a recent payroll start date for reference. This will allow the system to calculate all the pay periods based on your most recent start date. In this case, I chose Monday, so I need to choose a Monday. And here I chose December 7th of 2020 as a recent payroll start date. ClassJuggler also wants to know what's the smallest time increment that employees can log time under. And because our classes run on 5-minute increments, I'm going to choose 5 minutes as the smallest time. And then just make sure you save your settings. Let's take a look at some of the other pay frequencies and how it changes the pay schedule settings. If I choose weekly, it has the same options as the biweekly. It still wants to know when your week starts and a recent start date for your payroll. Semi-monthly, this is already designed as the 1st through the 15th of each month, and then the 16th through the end of each month. So it's basically splitting your month in half. And for monthly, all we need to do is provide the start date for, or the start day of each of your weeks, whether that's a Monday or a Sunday or some other day. Now that we've got our time clock settings configured, let's talk about the next important setting, which is jobs and teams. Jobs allow you to track detail on what each staff member is working on and allows you to track things that are important to your business. If you're a small business and you have maybe just one person doing administrative work and the rest of your staff is only teaching classes, you may not even need to add any jobs or teams. In this example, I'm going to set up a number of different jobs and a few teams so that you can see how this all works. On the Jobs and Teams menu, there's two different tabs, our jobs and our teams. Looking at my jobs list, you can see I've set up 4 different types of jobs: a birthday party, paperwork, special events, and tryouts. You'll notice I don't have a job for classes. Classes are just a default capability of the time clock, so we don't actually need to create a special job for teaching classes. When a staff member enters their time, they'll be able to select the class that they taught, and that automatically designates that entry as a class time entry. You'll notice on some of these jobs there's an override rate, and some of them don't have an override rate. The way this works is if I am teaching a birthday party and I'm normally teaching classes at $35 an hour, I'm only going to be paid $25 an hour. Same thing with paperwork. We don't want to necessarily pay our instructors a premium amount to sit down and do weekly paperwork or daily paperwork. We're going to be paying them a lower rate to do some of that administrative work. Things like special events allow a staff member to log that as what they're working on, but still be paid their normal rate, so there's no override on those particular jobs. Let me click into Edit Job to show you how simple this screen is. All we need to do is give each job a name or a code, a short description, and then if it has an override rate, we'll go ahead and type that into the hourly rate field. ClassJuggler will also let us know if that particular job's being used. In this case, that job is linked to 2 different teams. I'll go back to my job listing, and now let's shift gears and look at our teams. The concept of teams allows me to assign the different job codes that different groups of staff members are allowed to use. So for example, I've got admin as a team, instructors as a team, and another special team called new team members for when we add somebody new to our company. Let's look at the admin team first. I'm going to click on Edit Team. Here we just have a team name and a description for the team. And then the 2 sections below allow me to say which jobs team members are allowed to use who are on this team and who's on the team. So here are the jobs linked to this team. In this case, only special event is the item that I've got on here. I'm going to add one more job to this team, and I'm going to put in paperwork, and I'm going to select and return. And now that's added that particular job to this team called admin. So these 2 jobs are now available to anybody who's at the bottom of the screen that I have linked to this team. So I have 6 staff members that are part of the admin team. And each one of these, when they log into their time clock, will have access to log hours against paperwork, special event, and of course, by default, classes. Let's go back to our team list. And I'm going to select the instructor team. This is a bigger team. And for our instructors, we have birthday parties, paperwork, and if I want to add one more, I want to do, actually, I'm going to add all of these, special events and tryouts. So now they have all 4 job codes available to them, and these are all the staff members that are part of that team. And adding and removing staff members is simple. If I want to add a new staff member, I just click on Add Users to the Team, and I would just select a name. Oh, they're already on the team. It just lets me know that they're not being added. But if they were not already on the team, they would now become part of that team. And it's easy to remove a user from a team just by clicking the link in the Action column. Same thing with removing or adding job codes. I can do that using the Action column in Job Codes section, or click on Add Remove Jobs from the team and just uncheck the ones that I don't want to be part of this team. And again, just remember that teams allow you to associate staff members with the different job codes that they're allowed to log time against. It's also possible for one staff member to be on multiple teams. In that case, it'll merge the job codes from the 2 teams together so that if there's additional job codes on one team and not on another, they'll still have access to all of those. So now that we've talked about jobs and teams, let's move on to reviewing and approving time, and then ultimately look at reporting. So as an administrator, your job will be to review all of the time that your staff members are submitting and either approve them, request changes, or deny those entries as you go through your payroll period. Let's take a look at reviewing and approving time. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we're selecting the pay period we want to work with. By default, it's going to choose the current pay period. I'm going to go back a little bit where I've got some sample entries and select March 15th through the 28th. Again, we're dealing with a bi-weekly pay period here. And now I see in my table, I've got 8 different time entries that I need to review and decide if I'm approving, asking for updates, or denying that time. There's a simple way to approve all the records here in case I don't need to make any changes or request any or information from any of the staff members, just by clicking Check All on Page and then clicking on the green Approve Selected button. That'll approve all of those time cards and they'll then be ready for payroll. If I needed to drill down and look at a particular time entry and see any more of the detail, all I have to do is click on the Review button on the right. Let's look at this very first entry from Castro Willingham. And now we're on the Review and Approve Biweekly Time screen. As an administrator, you have complete control over any time card that your staff members submit. That allows you to make updates to any aspect of the time card. That includes the date, the beginning and ending times or duration, what job that employee selected. You can enter in administrative notes, comments, questions, and then you can make updates to that time card. Or you can even link a class to an existing time card, or even remove that time card entirely and delete it from that employee's records. At the bottom of the screen are our status change buttons, which allows us to quickly approve that time card, deny that time card, or send it back to the employee for review or comment or updates. If, for example, I needed to get clarification on this, I might type a note saying, and I could click on Send Back for Review, and that would send that back to that employee, changing the status from submitted back to pending. Let's go back to our list of time entries and look at another one of these. Let's look at one from Nick Burns that is a class time card. When I click on Review on this time card, we can see that this was actually entered in a different manner where it was just giving us a duration, in this case 45 minutes. There's no job code assigned to this because we have a linked class. And we can see how it was created and so forth by looking at the record information, creation dates, when it was updated, and so forth. And the same on this one, I could change the class that it was linked to, remove the class, add a job code, change the date, the time, duration, make any updates I need to do, or just approve, deny, or send this back for review. As an administrator, you can add time entries for any employee. This is great if you have any type of special options for adding maybe some bonus time for employees that have done a good job. I'd be able to come in here and maybe create a time entry for a job code I created called bonus hours, and maybe give them an additional half hour or hour of time based on their performance. Or if somebody were out, they might be sick, I can create time entries for them to make sure that I complete my payroll for the particular period. And clicking on the Start New Time Entry gives me a completely new blank screen. I then see the status is new. I can choose the employee that this is for. I can choose the date that I want to log the time, the beginning time, and the ending time, what job I was working, and any notes I want to enter. And then I can save that. I could even link a class to that. And now I've created a time entry for one of my employees. Let's go back to the list of time entries one more time, and also talk about looking at different statuses of time entries. By default, when I come to the screen, it's only going to be showing me submitted time entries. This is the quickest way to get through reviewing and approving time. But I can also look at specific statuses. What time's already been approved? Any time that was denied in this particular payroll period? You can see I've got one entry. Any pending time, meaning an employee has not yet submitted that for review and approval. So I have one from Kelly. And here is all of our time except for pending time. And our goal for each pay period will be to make sure that we review all of the submitted hours from our employees and get those approved and ready for payroll. Once we approve the end of a particular payroll period, we're going to want to go into our reporting menu to run reports and get total hours for our calculations for our payroll. So here we're going to start out on the Live Time Report tab under Reporting. I'm going to go back to that 315 through 328 pay period, and I'm going to look at a particular staff member. Here's Nick. And this breaks down all of the details for that pay period for this particular employee. And it comes in two sections. I've got all of the time that was logged by job and all of the time that was logged for each class. And scrolling to the right will show me each day of this 2-week time period, and for each column, the total number of minutes or hours that were logged for each one of those particular jobs. If that job had an override rate, I'll see that in this column. It just helps me remember what that calculation is based on. And then a total time column for each row, meaning each job, and an estimated pay column, which is a calculation based on either override rates, the default rate for that employee, multiplied times their total time. The second section, which is approved time by class, will show me all of the classes that were taught in that same pay period for this one employee. And again, scrolling to the right will show me days of each week, the total time that was logged for classes on those days, the total count of classes for all of those days, total time, and then estimated pay. And if you remember, because Nick is being paid per class, the time is irrelevant. It's just a multiplier of the number of classes taught during that period multiplied times his pay rate. And at the very bottom, I'll get a final total, which makes it just easy at a glance to see what that pay rate should, or that estimated pay amount should be for that payroll period for this particular employee. This is the detailed view. I can also look at a live time summary, which gives me a view of a payroll period for all employees in that pay period, but condensed to make it a lot easier for me just to scroll through. So here I can see Nick Burns again with those totals. I can scroll down and see other employees, Mandy, Maddie, etc. And this is great for doing the whole payroll without looking at detail, finding out what your estimated calculations are for pay for each employee by their job in a much more summarized table format. And finally, you can take all of those estimated calculations, whether you're taking in the hours or the actual estimated pay, to make your payments directly to your employees, whether you're paying those directly through your bank, through a bill pay or Zelle or some other payment service, or by entering into a payroll system that will then calculate taxes and so forth for final paychecks to be cut to each employee. And if you have any questions on how to use the new time clock feature, make sure you reach out to the support team at ClassJuggler by sending an email to support@classjuggler.com or giving us a call at our toll-free number, which is 866-214-6128.